You know, when you follow your team, you only see the warts. You don't see the good stuff. And as a result, other people can see that too. We'll kind of start to rectify that today.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On College Network, your team every day. Hi, I'm Stephen Willis. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. And you know, whenever you follow your own team, you see the warts, right? We're going to rectify that today. We're going to look at a poll done on the ranking of SEC quarterbacks, and we're going to pick it apart, just unbiased, and compare Ole Miss's players, whether it be Spencer Sanders or Jaxson Dart or Walker Howard, and just show you kind of the bias and actually what's out there in the Southeastern Conference. And we can understand that we are not that bad of a shape, even though they might think we are. Anyway, should be a lot of fun indeed. Let's kind of go ahead and go to that right now. All right, first of all, this is a Sporting News rankings that put the Ole Miss Rebels and Jaxson Dart at the 9th rated quarterback in the conference. That's right, the 9th rated quarterback in the conference. I'll pause for you to stop laughing. All right. Lane Kiffin has the most peculiar quarterback room in the country. It's not a bad thing. Dart, a USC transfer, made 11 starts last season and appears to have a good shot of retaining the starting job. Dart passed for 300 yards and a touchdown in the spring. Sanders, however, could make a strong push for a starting job in fall camp. He was 31-11 as a starter at Oklahoma State. He put up 265 yards and 3 touchdowns in the spring game and provides the threat of a running game. Walker Howard, an LSU transfer and 5-star recruit, also in the mix. Even if Dart wins the starting job, Sanders will see action. All right. The first thing that you notice is Jaxson Dart went through a whole season, threw for nearly 3,000 yards, threw for 20-something touchdowns, and is rated 9th in the country. And we're going to leave this up on the screen while we're telling you exactly what's going through. But we're going to go by team and tell you why. Honestly, this is a BS ranking by the Sporting News, all right? The first ranking is going to be LSU, Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier, which honestly, we'll argue with it from time to time and just strength of the quarterback room. But for the time being, yes, you can put them there. We're fine with that. We'll be all right with that. Number 2, Arkansas, KJ Jefferson with the backup of Cade Fortin. I don't agree with this at all. And this is why. If you remember when Kendall Briles was the offensive coordinator at Houston and he had De'Aaron King, and De'Aaron King was all world and led the Houston Cougars to the Peach Bowl, and they played extremely well. And everybody was talking about exactly what De'Aaron King was and how great of a quarterback he was. The next year, Kendall Briles went to Florida State, and you never heard from De'Aaron King again. I think he's a backup quarterback with the DC Defenders at the moment. I think a similar situation could happen with KJ Jefferson, with Dan Enos calling the offense. He was there with Burt in the mid-2014-15 range. That is the offense that he runs. So I don't know if that will be that great of a fit for KJ Jefferson. We'll have to see how well it gets used. I could be completely wrong on this, but I am not overly impressed. Number 3, Tennessee, Joe Milton. People are impressed with his ability to throw an orange 80 yards or a football 80 yards or whatever's going on. They ignore the fact that he has been benched at 2 locations as the starting quarterback. He was the starting quarterback at Michigan, benched. The first year at Tennessee, he was benched for Hendon Hooker. This is going to be firmly a show-me type quarterback. He has 7 starts, 3 at Michigan and 4 at Tennessee. Am I thinking he has the tools to be good? Yes, but so did Jamarcus Russell. We'll see exactly what goes there. Another quarterback is Will Rogers. Ton of starts, but he had a ton of starts in the air raid. And this isn't the air raid that they're running. I think there's a chance that Mike Wright is the starting quarterback by the Egg Bowl. Seriously. Will Rogers was an excellent air raid type quarterback. I am not sure about him in that Appalachian State system. We'll see exactly how that goes, but I am not overly confident about that. Number 5, Carson Beck assumed, because nobody is, there's no starts showing up here. Now it's 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. Is probably a talented player, and if not, they have another talented player that is going to jump in. I would honestly put Georgia at like number 2 on this list. I think that they have plenty of chances to do it. Carson Beck appears to be the leader. He looked all right in the national championship game in that destruction of TCU. I think Georgia is going to click right along. Number 6, South Carolina, Spencer Rattler. This is another one that I could be okay with them putting up high. I'm not necessarily a Spencer Rattler guy, but he should be higher than Joe Milton. Honestly, he should probably be higher than Georgia. He should be higher than Mississippi State, than Arkansas. I mean, that should happen. Spencer Rattler has a chance to be really good. It just worries about consistency. Is he going to be consistent? If he can be, South Carolina could be very good, and it's going to be mostly dependent on what he does. Number 7, Kentucky. This is another place that has a quarterback that should be ranked higher. Liam Cohen is back at Kentucky. He has 27 career starts in NC State. We'll see what they do. That this was a good pickup by Kentucky. I do worry without having Chris Rodriguez in the backfield how much that will affect them as well. Number 8, Connor Weigman, 4 starts. Connor Weigman went against Jaxson Dart last year. Did not have the better day. Jaxson Dart won that game almost by himself. And Quinshon Judkins for 200 yards. But Jaxson Dart running the ball was an absolute weapon. That's something to keep an eye on. Jaxson Dart over Connor Weigman. Good quarterback. I have no problem with Weigman being a decent quarterback. I have a major problem with him being ranked above Jaxson Dart. Now, below Dart on this list, you have Alabama, the Milroe, the Tyler Buckner, Ty Simpson competition. I don't know who it will be, but if it's Tyler Buckner, Alabama's probably in trouble. Auburn, Peyton Thorne comes in. If you're looking for mid-level Big Ten quarterbacks against Robbie Ashford, Auburn has you covered. Florida, another mid-level Big Ten quarterback in Graham Mertz going against Jack Miller, the transfer from Ohio State. Missouri, Brady Cook had a decent enough year. I think he's kind of too low at 13. I think the next one, AJ Swann, is too low at 14. So whenever you look at this list, I just gave you all 14. Jaxson Dart should probably be no lower than 5th on this list. And if you're lower than 5th, you honestly don't know what you're talking about, because there are several quarterbacks that got put on there because of an assumption where they did. And everybody should be mindful of exactly, it may not work out for them. They could have all the talent in the world. Shea Patterson happened. Big name quarterbacks flame out. It happens. But 12 games into the season, I'll take Jaxson Dart over most everybody on this list. So this is important to know. This is the list of what the Ole Miss Rebels are going against this year. At the quarterback position, there's probably 5 teams that can comparably have an argument with Ole Miss at the quarterback position. Just 5. It's not a situation where and Spencer Sanders, if he wins this job, same situation. We're not talking about a big jump from one to the other. We just talk about stylistic differences. And it is important that Ole Miss fans can be wary of what was going on, because Jaxson Dart or Spencer Sanders can have a big year for Ole Miss. This is not necessarily a down year, even though everybody's talking about it. But you have preseason predictions putting Ole Miss at like 3rd in the SEC West, with quarterback pieces down at the bottom 3rd of the league. And those just don't compute. That just does not compute. Anyway, today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious snack, but you do not want all the sugar and calories, then you need the best tasting protein bar ever, Built. You gotta try this. If you're like me and you want to make a healthier snack choice, but you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just the thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and taste amazing. Seriously, they're so amazing, you won't even think they're good for you. You got to try this. What makes them so good? Well, try 100% real dark chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro and peanut butter brownie and cookies and cream. And I'm not sure how they do it, but all these bars taste like a candy bar, but it's like 130 calories or 4 grams of sugar, 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait to get your box. You can go to the nearest Walmart today. Instead of going to built.com and putting in Locked On 15, now you can go to Walmart. Go into the pharmacy section. Grab yourself a box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puff. Yum. That's right. You can get it there. If you're close to a Sam's Club, you can run and get a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, peanut butter brownie batter puff, and churro puff. And you can thank me later. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Every day is tomorrow on the show. Tomorrow on the show, we'll continue our magazine look of what's going on. We're going to talk about preseason Ole Miss football. We're going to talk about 8 or 9 conference games. We're even going to mix it up like SEC After Dark, my other show on my other channel. You can catch a Georgia fan, an Alabama fan, a Tennessee fan talking about this schedule. We're going to blow it out this weekend, so tune in for that this week, Wednesday night. So check that out as well. Should be really cool. All right. Something that is interesting that happened, and we kind of all assumed that it might happen, is they did not roll over Mike Bianco. Now, everybody agreed that this season needed consequences. Only the lightest of lightweights wanted this season to go off untouched. Now, whenever I talked about no job security, anything needs to happen after winning the national championship, I meant that. But that didn't mean nothing should happen. And not rolling over Mike Bianco is a perfect thing. That's going to lower his buyout by about $1.5 million next year. So if he does not perform after next year, decisions can be made, because Ole Miss and Mississippi State, it's no surprise, I don't think, that both won national championships when you could stock your rosters because of COVID. It wasn't a true 11.7. When it's a true 11.7, Ole Miss and State has a disadvantage. And right now they're trying to have to figure out how that 11.7 works in the modern scheme of things. It just kind of is what it is. Now, Mike Bianco, heck of a coach. He's going to have his name on that stadium probably in the next 15 years. It will be Mike Bianco Stadium. But does that mean just because that he deserves to have his contract rolled over? No, it's a hard decision to make, but I think they went like 6-24 this year. You don't deserve to get a contract rollover with that record, period. It doesn't matter who you are and what you've done. Here's the article from On3. Ole Miss opts against contract rollover for head baseball coach Mike Bianco. And that's from On3, the Ole Miss Spirit. Now, used to, people would always talk about, all right, the rollover is the very important thing. You have to do it for recruiting. You've all heard this stuff. You have to do it for recruiting. And now I don't know if that is 100% accurate or 100% something that has to happen for recruiting. In the age of NIL, I do think having the highest dollar amount gets you the tiebreaker in any such situation. So that is the important piece. That is the important thing that you need to look at. Rolling over the contract is a nice way to save those donors money so they can continue contributing to the NIL fund, because the NIL fund is the most important fund. I don't care if it's, you're up here, you have On3 on the screen. I don't care if that's $10 a month. If you take that $10 a month and you put it in the NIL fund and go to get a Grove Collective subscription, that is probably a better taste of your money. If season tickets, I'm telling you, it's going to get to the point, if they keep doing what they're doing, people are going to start taking that and you're just like, hey, you know what? It's costing me $3,000 a year for season tickets. Why don't I just take that money and put it in NIL and watch it in 4K on TV? By the way, change the subject. I got the 4K package on my TV, and I've been watching USFL and sporting events once you watch that in 4K, I don't know if you will ever watch anything ever again. And I'm a fan of 1080p or 720p and all of that, but 4K, that stuff is amazing. You could see the individual blades of grass on the turf field. It's quite impressive. But anyway, about this contract, people are going to take their money and do other things with it. So it's at a point now where you need to placate the fans probably more than you ever have, because you're essentially fighting against annihilation. They have a situation now, they've already had a capital campaign that got stunted by NIL because it's competing against each other for dollars. And we are going to have Jason Simmons, I think that's his name, on the show. I just forget it. It could be a brain surgery moment. If I got it wrong, Jason, I apologize. But he's going to talk NIL. And he's going to be the person that kind of lets everybody know what's going on his side, NIL-wise, because he has NIL socks. And you can buy like a Quinshon Judkins set of socks, and it's a perfect gift for Father's Day, honestly. But you could get that, and it will go directly to the NIL fund. It's going to be good. As this market gets set, there's going to be a reshuffling of importance of sports and where NIL money is distributed. Who gets the main portions of money for, of a university thing? Are you donating to a capital project? Are you getting season tickets? Are you donating to the NIL collectives and just watching it on television? Stuff like that is very real things. There's people that simply just enjoy doing that more than going and spending a day in the Grove. There's certain people that the Grove is all that matters. And I had comments in yesterday's show about how they would rather beat Tulane and MTSU than lose to Georgia or LSU. And I just like, man, that's a tough mindset. If you get there, if you live there, that's a tough place to be. I mean, that bar is on the floor if you were there. You are just lucky to play in the conference. It's just it's a terrible, terrible way to look at things, in my opinion. But it is how certain people look at it. And there are people that you can always count on to be in the stadium no matter what, because the Grove is that important to them, man. Just going to the game and socializing is that important to them. But you also have the fans and the hardcore fans on top of them. You have neutral and new fans that you are trying to build. It's not just about one segment. And if you start concentrating on one segment, you're going to have the 70s and 80s all over again. Seriously, because that mindset's dangerous. Absolutely dangerous for Keith Carter. And if he ever gets it, it's just going to go straight down. It's going to look like MSU recruiting this year. Going to be absolutely nuts. Anyway, when we come back, we are going to talk about the 8 or 9 game situation and where we are right now before they meet in Destin. I guess they're meeting today is the first day. I don't think they're going to vote day one. I think it is going to go on for a little bit, but we're going to talk about exactly where they sit because Ross Dellinger had an interesting piece about that. So stick around. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Sign to the YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, upvote, comment, join our subtext community. All of that would be greatly appreciated. All right, the 8 or 9 game question is going to be the main question for the Southeastern Conference, at least for the next 7 days. It could be for the next year, but at least for the next 7 days. And it should be interesting. There's an article that was written by Ross Dellinger. 9-game conference football schedule, field storming on the docket at SEC spring meetings. The contentious issues could alter the landscape of secondary rivalries. Think Ole Miss and LSU right there. And future home games, leaving plenty to discuss in Destin, Florida. That home games is about field storming. They're talking about potentially taking away home games for storming the field. Weird situation, but that is what they're thinking about. Now, everybody is going to say this is about money. And this is something that's popped up in the last week or two, which I don't think is the case. Honestly, I think this is spin. Maybe it's posturing for ESPN. Okay. I know they want more money, but they knew about this situation whenever they took on Texas and Oklahoma. And now all of a sudden this is popping up as a thing, and it's only popping up in football. Okay. So this feels like a little bit of a cash grab, a little bit, but it is very fair to say that it is not just about the money, said Kentucky President Eli Capilotto, I think it is. As we are fixing to focus more on the student-athlete well-being, one has to understand the implications in the light of the new college football formats, playoff of the season. What does that mean in a bigger context of what we should consider? What does that mean for bowl participation, length of season? All of those things come first. Now, this is interesting. Now, if it is just about money and you want more money, the SEC has a stake in revenue that they get from the SEC network. You take that 9-game schedule and you put it on Thursday or Friday night and do an SEC game of the week again on top of a Saturday night, and all of a sudden you have revenue for spades. You can do that each week. You have 12 games. There's your extra conference game. Okay, this isn't hard. You've found a way to get more money, and you put situation to where your Saturdays are not really messed up in just a Thursday night game. You can have a conference game every week of the season on Thursday night. You get that on SEC Network. People will tune in. I realize that, Amazon or whoever has a game, but on the SEC Network, people that want to tune into these games, people that want to watch SEC football will watch. That's a way that you can take those get 9 games, that extra game, and make extra money on it. Okay? That's important. As far as length of season, college football formats, the players are getting paid. I don't care. That doesn't concern me anymore. The stuff about having to treat them with kid gloves, no. The moment you start transferring immediate away, the moment you start making power plays and entering the portal to get more money, I don't really care anymore about the length of play and stuff like that for the student athlete. Honestly, you cannot get rid of the student thing because they're just athletes at this point in my mind. All right. We're not done, though. There is more. As officials arrive Monday for this week's meetings, they are closer to resolution on the scheduling format. But that's not what many expected. Under consideration is a 1-year temporary 8-game conference schedule in 2024 that will, at least for a year, preserve both primary and secondary rivalries. All right, golf clap there. The LSU game, if this gets passed, because I think this might be worst case scenario. They might do this for a year and kind of kick the can down the road and try and get the 9-game for 2024. I'm okay with that. It isn't about 8 or 9. This is about preserving the games that I want to see. All right? And also allows you to save one of those games that you were going to have to cancel that could be a problem for a poor athletic department. Okay? Why 8? Capilotto's concern are echoed by many within the league. What's the impact of a 9th league game on the athlete's health? That's BS. That's stupid. There's 9 games being played in the Big 12, Big 10, and Pac-12. This is stupid. Okay, that's dumb. And an expanded college football playoff, that only affects just a couple of players. Vanderbilt, that's obviously not a concern of theirs and probably will not be. A third question, though, has lingered and gone unanswered for a year. The extra money from which ESPN, which it is not contractually required to provide more money for a 9th game. Okay? They knew this whenever they chose to expand. They knew that expanding would exasperate an already terrible scheduling model to where, Georgia or Tennessee or whatever has not been to College Station, something like that, in a decade or more. Our schedule for the last 10 years has been absolutely terrible, abhorrent. And they knew what ESPN was willing to do. And we heard about this whenever they were spinning how it was a good deal, how ESPN was going to pay more for Texas and Oklahoma. You remember that? ESPN was going to pay more? Well, You're getting a large contract now. Large. They boosted up the money for Texas and Oklahoma. Might be an 8-game rate, but they boosted up that money. You knew what was going on. It doesn't take Einstein to see how the schedule was going to be a problem. This needs to happen not for ESPN, not to make more money, but to make it work. And honestly, in 2024, it should start. Even if it's happening at a loss, you should do it at good faith for a company that's struggling revenue-wise and doing layoffs and things like that, where you're not going to get that money. Give that money back to the fans, essentially. Have a game on Thursday night or Friday night that is broadcast on the SEC network, a network that you get part of the proceeds for. And that is a way you can get more money for it and also increase the visibility for that network. So without the incentive of additional revenue from the network, more than half of the league is in support of remaining at 8 games for the first year that Texas and Oklahoma began play in 2024. The expectation is that ESPN, in the midst of layoffs, will not commit to additional revenue for the 9th game, at least not now. They absolutely won't. The temporary 1-game model is a placeholder for a potential 9-game schedule to start in 2025 if ESPN enhances the deal. Here's the deal. ESPN doesn't need to enhance the deal. You can enhance the deal by putting another piece of premium content on the SEC network. If you get ESPN just to agree to do that, it's like, yes, 1 game a week. We will give the SEC network for that game the 3rd pick of the week. Make it a premium game. Make it a game that people want to tune in for. You can get your revenue that way instead of it guaranteed from a check that's not going on. In an old-fashioned American-style way, you can earn it. You have the content. Give it to the SEC network. Let it work. Seriously. But when you look at what's going on, the 8-game temporary schedule, as long as the LSU game is preserved to go with the MSU game, I'm okay with that. If they just kick the can down the road, I am fine with that. But after 1 year, if they kick it down again to where the scheduling just gets jacked up again, the way it has been for the last decade, I will have problems with it to where they did it on purpose. Because at this point, now I don't want to, speak out of turn or speak out of school, but at this point, doesn't it kind of seem like they're kind of extorting ESPN? With what's going on at Fox and NBC and CBS, they kind of see that. They're trying to make their grab to get as much as they can, which I don't blame them. That's kind of their job, but that's kind of what that feels like. Money-wise, we'll see exactly what happens. But this temp solution for an 8-game season, I would be okay for 1 year. 1 year. By next Destin, you've got 1 year to get it figured out. Next Destin, the 2025 schedule needs to come out at 9 games. It needs to come out with the permanent rivals the way it is. It needs to come out for the conference. It needs to honestly come out for college football. Because let's be honest about this for a second. This is what we want as fans. And I will gladly speak for most Joe football fans. Not we want the easiest thing possible because 10-2 with a victory over Indiana State is better than 9-3 with a loss over Georgia. And I've had those comments. That's absolutely weird. But I want 9 conference games. I want Mississippi State, LSU, and Auburn or Vanderbilt. Hey, if you want to change it around, give us Tennessee as full-time rivals. Okay? I want a Power 5 game that is required, to where 10 games are required at the Power 5 level. 9 conference games and the USC game. That's 10 games. And then you have an FCS game, because I want that FCS game to be stayed and taken care of. Some people are going to want to get rid of that one. I want to keep that game, because it is their whole budget, those bye games. Football, college football essentially dies without those bye games. So I do want to keep those bye games, unless you want to move them to the spring game. That's an interesting thought as well. And I want one G5 game, American, Sun Belt, all of those, just alternate them back and forth. But if you do that, you have a schedule that people will show up for. The Grove will be packed. Think of what the second half of the college football season looked like at Ole Miss compared to the first half in the stands. That's the difference I'm talking about. That is the difference. Have self-confidence that you can get it done. And honestly, if it's there to where it has to happen, you're going to build. You're going to do whatever you can to compete, more so than being complacent over playing Indiana State. Anyway, just a weird thing. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow on the show, we will continue our previews. We talked about quarterback rankings today. We're going to talk about running backs tomorrow. Yes, running backs. Also, we will continue to keep you updated on the 8 and 9 game conference schedule as more news comes out, because more will. I guarantee you. It's going to be like the debt ceiling, if we're going to be honest. I think there's a chance that we could have a 9-game playoff by the end, a 9-game season by the end of this week. Just kind of is what it is. We'll see you tomorrow. Hotty toddy.